Thank you for coming along this far. Today we're going to conclude the introduction section. For the introduction, we've been laying down the groundwork, the base for which all other themes and concepts will be built upon. We're diving headfirst into the critical lens. And truth be told, we've already been doing it. We've been using the critical lens for our past 6 themes of context, self-responsibility, internal barriers, external barriers, the glossary, and categories. We're going to be more direct this time. When we say critical, it means we're trying to build up a more whole perspective, get a holistic understanding of our subject. For example, critical race theory, which for a while was all over the news, that's just looking at all ins and outs about race. Its history, the science, or lack thereof, the social, economic, political, cultural implications. It's looking at all angles. We can do this for anything, whether it's gender or accessibility, whether it is law enforcement or planning. By lens, we mean how to choose to perceive things, like using a camera to zoom in and out, look vertically or horizontally, add filters. We change the lens based on what we're trying to accomplish. Together, it is to make a choice to be critical and research, reflect, and analyze what we're doing. For this video, we're going to take a slightly different approach than we have before. There are 10 methods in the guidebook on how to be critical, and we'll give an example for each. To be critical is to question everything. For example, how is our organization's money being invested? Do those investments match our values? Most often we just look at whether the employee's 401 plan is going well or not, when we can question more. To be critical is to take nothing for granted. For example, just because we can call ourselves public servants does not automatically mean we're serving the public, at least not all of the public. Rather than assume our work is doing good simply because we work in the public sector, we can take time to really look at our impacts and see how we're doing all right and where we can do better. To be critical is to ask who, why, what, where, when, how. If we're going to start on a community outreach initiative, it pays to ask these questions. Who are we specifically trying to reach? Why them and not others? What do we hope to accomplish? Where will we do it? When? How will we go about it? If we don't have a good answer to any of these questions, then we can pause and make the changes necessary until we do. To be critical is to break things down into their base components. Do you have a charter? That's a good place to begin. It is the baseline, the single document to which the rest of the organization builds off of. Anything amiss? Anything stand out? What does it say? To be critical is to connect and synthesize information in new ways. We can read up on our community's history. I don't just mean what's on Wikipedia, I mean to really dive in. Who founded it? Who are the original streets named after? What kind of people were they? Has the character of the community changed in the past 50 years? We learn about the past to better know the present. To be critical is to consider the theoretical. Here's a brain teaser. What would it take for us to be fully caught up on fixing our roads, sidewalks, and all other right-of-way? It's a real challenge for most communities considering the full costs, what we'd have to give up to pay for it, but it can help us understand the situation more clearly. To be critical is to also think of practical applications. If a frontline staff member has a recommendation on how to serve the public better, why don't we just do it? Push through all the red tape, the hierarchy, and put their idea to practice. A good idea is a good idea is a good idea after all. To be critical takes time, effort, and reflection. If we want employees to be more connected to the people, pay for them to volunteer. Let them take the time to serve in other ways and expand their horizons. To be critical requires the audacity to challenge the status quo. One area rife with inequities is the budget. After all, that is the root source of funding for our projects and programs, and we can point out where a line item, decision, or even the budget process itself can be more representative. And to be critical is to be humble in our own perceptions. We can always seek out the input, the wisdom of others. This becomes all the more important when we don't have to, when we find that we alone are in a position to make a decision. Including others, elevating their voice makes us better, our services better, and paves the way to future collaboration. These are just examples. When we put our mind to it, when we prioritize it, the opportunities for equity are endless with a bit of extra thought and care. For our optional exercise, go beyond this guidebook. Look up a book, or video, or movie, or show, or podcast. There are so many good resources to help us along, to encourage us to be critical. You can look up a list, get a recommendation from a peer. Pick 2 out to start. There's no right or wrong, just what interests you, what you think will be most relevant to your work and your journey. As we wrap up the introduction section, let's take one last lap to see where we've been. We sought to clarify and explain some of the base fundamentals of equity. I want to take this quick minute to remind ourselves that these fundamentals do challenge many mainstream beliefs and values. A lot of people do not accept they always have context or believe the categories they fall under matter. See barriers more like guardrails to keep us on track rather than walls holding us back. Remember this, there will be people who push back against the lessons we're learning. We can now consider our context in any given situation, as well as the context of others. We've accepted our self-responsibility to do our part. We've identified the barriers we're facing. We're building a deeper understanding of different relevant concepts, wrapping our heads around the many demographics and other categories there are, and now have some key examples in taking a critical lens to our work. Our next section goes into the current state. We'll discuss how to understand where we and our institutions are currently at before we start to act. We're going to start with our first theme, normal. See you soon.